Hey there, Grandmaster Igor Smirnov is here, and today you're about to see the game where Magnus Carlsen lost in just 12 moves, which is an extremely rare occasion, could be like one and only game like that. He was playing black against the grandmaster Yannick Pelletier, and the game started with pawn to d4, knight of 6, c4, e6, and they went into the Nimzo Indian Defense, one of the very common opening lines. White played queen to c2, black responded pawn to d5. So far everything was fairly classical, but at this point Carlsen played an unusual move, pawn to c5. And at first it may seem like a mouse sleep or something like that he unintentionally played the wrong move, but it actually makes sense because black is just trying to sacrifice a pawn to gain extra temples for development. For example, if white would here just take the pawn on e6, black can recapture, and you can easily see that already black is slightly ahead in development, and that's the reason for him to sacrifice a pawn. He's trying to fight for initiative. Therefore, even though this c5 move looks unusual and maybe strange at first, it actually does make sense, and black is fighting for initiative. In the actual game, white played a more calm move. He played pawn takes c5, which allows black to recapture that pawn on d5, and black took with the knight, and so the game comes back to a more positional, a simpler kind of continuation. Perhaps it could have been better for black to recapture on d5 with a pawn, which is slightly riskier positionally, strategically, because this pawn is weak and white can possibly attack it in the future. But since black chosen a more of a gambit line, it was probably more in style of this opening choice, and he could have possibly threatened white with a pawn to d4, and he has more open lines for his pieces in the future. And yeah, even though he has this weak pawn in the center, but he can try to compensate it with an active piece play. In the game though, he played a more solid move, knight takes d5, putting some pressure onto the white's knight on c3, which is pinned, so white decided to support it with the bishop. Black recaptured the pawn back on c5, and currently the material balance is even once again. White took the knight on d5, black recaptured with a queen. He has to do to recapture with a queen because white also attacked the bishop on c5, and therefore it needs some extra protection. Black recaptured, and at this point I've got the first question for you, and maybe the only question for you, but anyway. What if white play pawn to b4? It didn't happen in the actual game, but it may seem like white is just winning. What do you think about this? Because the bishop is attacked, both with a pawn and with a queen, and if the bishop goes back or anywhere, white will gladly capture the other bishop on c8. Does it mean that Carlsen simply blundered this, or did he prepare something to surprise white in case of this move pawn to b4? You may think about this for a moment and write it down in the comments below. Let's see if you could find the surprise that black prepared here at this point. In the actual game though, white here played another move. He played pawn to e4, attacking the queen, and black played queen to d4, which looks like a very good move at first, but it actually turns out to be quite a big mistake. Now, what was the Carlsen's idea? Obviously, the immediate threat is queen takes f2, which white should prevent somehow. And what if white plays bishop to c3? Does that refute the black's idea altogether? No, because Carlsen prepared a powerful counterblow, bishop to b4, pinning the bishop, putting extra pressure on white, and black is doing perfectly fine. Therefore, this could be the line which Carlsen was hoping for, and yet white played another move. Instead of bishop to c3, he sacrificed the pawn by playing long castling. And it turned out that even though the white's king is somewhat exposed here on c1 because the c-file is opened, but currently black can't really make use of it because black is underdeveloped. Now, what about queen takes f2? It turns out that black can't really capture the pawn because white goes knight h3 attacking the queen. The queen has to keep protection of the bishop, therefore the only possible move for black is queen goes to d4, and now white goes bishop g5 with multiple threats. The rook is attacking the queen. If it goes back or anywhere, white goes rook d8 checkmate. The bishop is still hanging on c5, and obviously black is just losing here. Therefore, Carlsen refused to capture the pawn, as we have just seen. It didn't work for black, and therefore he played knight to d7. Black realized that his bishop on c5 is somewhat vulnerable and is hanging in different lines, and therefore black provides an additional protection for the bishop. White plays bishop to b5 trying to put some more pressure and neutralize that knight, and once again in some lines to renew that threat to the black's bishop on c5, because white is also ready to jump with his bishop from d2 somewhere. And at this point the black's position became like really dangerous, and Carlsen could not find the way to keep the game going. He castled, which is the most natural reaction, and it was probably a mistake. Well, it was a mistake for sure. Instead of that, he could have played bishop to e7 just to remove that bishop from that danger, and even though white is still keeping more initiative position, but at least black is still in the game, and at least he's not losing right away. Once again in the game, black castled, which is a more natural choice, but it turned out that after bishop to c3, black is just losing. The thing is pretty simple. Bishop c3 is a discovered attack to the black's queen, which is also attacked by the bishop, and the black's knight on d7 is hanging, and that is really the problem that black cannot solve. He will lose the knight for nothing, and it is resignable. It is only 12 moves, and basically it's time for black to resign. In the actual game, Carlsen played a few more moves which didn't change anything, and he resigned after that. He played queen to takes f2 and gave this check. I don't know why, and he resigned at this point, but I would say that after bishop to c3, that move which happened a few moves ago, that was already resignable. So an extremely rare case where Carlsen basically lost the game in 12 moves, and with all the fairness, I gotta say that the game was played in 2005, where Carlsen was only 15 years old, and yet it doesn't mean that he was a beginner player, not at all. He was already a grandmaster at the time, a very promising young prodigy, and definitely he was not a beginner, so therefore we gotta give credit to the white player, Yannick Pelletier, who played a really brilliant game. Also, pay attention to the opening choice of Magnus Carlsen in this game. Despite the unfavorable result for him, the line itself is really interesting. Black just played a couple of round moves later on, but I feel that if you play this line in Blitz especially, you can really get very good results because it's active and something probably unknown for your opponents. Also, if you want to dive deeper into the Nimzo defense in general, you can check out our newly launched course, How to Play the Nimzo. You can find the link on screen or down below the video, and there you will not only learn the lines of the Nimzo defense, but also you will explore some of the common pawn structures which can happen in other openings as well, which will help you in general to develop and increase your positional understanding of chess. The author of the course is not me, but I'm actually pretty happy about the coach which we could bring for you guys this time. It's Grandmaster Robert Hangaski. He's a FIDE senior trainer, coach for the US Chess Federation at international tournaments, and I'm sure you will love the course. So if you're interested, do click the link below and check this out. As always, when the course is just launched, we have some special offers and you can get it right now at the best price possible. Also, I hope that you enjoyed this game. If so, give it a like and let me know in the comments below if you want me to cover some specific games in my next videos. Meanwhile, have a great rest of the day and I'll talk to you soon.